So it's been a couple years now, Dusty, that you have switched into this criteria, the NMAA has switched into this criteria. How has it worked for you so far?
I think it's worked really well. I think the process is very statistical. It's all data driven. It's very objective, which I think is great for not only our staff, but for our schools. They know going in exactly how the process works. If they have questions, they call us and we tell them, here, you use these 6 criteria points. Wherever you fall based on that, that's where you fall. It's not our staff sitting in a room and drawing names out of a hat.
Is it fair to say that maybe still even coaches don't really understand the process at all?
I think so. There's still some folks out there that don't really get the entire process, and I think it's just good for us to try and educate. Our executive director, Sally Marquez, put together a video with your guys' help, actually, to hopefully educate our schools as much as possible. But I'm sure there's still some coaches out there that haven't seen that video or don't quite understand the process. So it's always good to talk about it as much as possible. So hopefully our member schools know what's going on.
Well, maybe let's try to help clarify, some of those issues.
Absolutely.
So we'll jump into it, and the first thing we'll do is we'll go over. There's 6 criteria.
Correct.
Okay, and this is in no particular order, by the way, just listed. Okay, so finish in your regular season district play, head-to-head with another opponent, wins against district champions regardless of classification, your overall record, Max Preps Freeman rankings, and then member school input. So those are the 6 criteria laid out. Now, there's an underlying tiebreaker that we're going to talk about here in a little bit if schools were to tie. But I guess help clarify. So this is almost like if you compare 2 teams, if one team wins one of the criteria, it's almost like they get a point. If another team wins another criteria, they get a point. How does that work?
Exactly. Yeah, we look at those 6 criteria points. We put 2 schools next to each other. We go point by point, and whoever has more of those criteria in their favor, they're going to earn that higher seed. Okay,
and so let's help clarify some of these things. Now, I know in basketball, maybe even more of an issue. So, for example, there could be Team A and Team B tie for the regular season district championship in which they have a tiebreaker, a separate game that decides their district champion. Now, is that something that you recognize, or do you consider then both of those teams district champs?
We do consider them both district champs. So that playoff game, actually, that's really just determining, 1, the automatic qualifier for the regular season that goes to the state playoffs, and then 2, the district tournament seeding. So, but from our standpoint, when we're looking at the criteria points, both of those schools would be considered district champs.
That's interesting. So you're saying that if 2 teams may be on the cusp of a 16 seed, for example, but are battling in a weaker district and they tie for the regular season district champ, but the winner in that playoff game then can get in the tournament and the loser might not then?
Exactly. Yeah. Potentially that could happen.
Okay, and so that being determined, head-to-head wins then against regular season district champs, would that count for a team outside of one district that maybe had beat a team that tied for a district championship but lost their playoff game?
It does, yeah. So both those schools are considered district champs. So a school from another classification even, or another district, if they beat both of those teams, they're actually going to get 2 points or 2 wins against district champs.
Now, in one of the teams that maybe had tied for the district regular season championship but lost their playoff, their wins will also count head-to-head if they did split with the team in their same district, right?
Correct, they would. Yep, exactly.
All right, and it would count even if they beat them a couple of times, maybe in the district tournament later, that would count as a district champion win?
Yes, we do count any district tournament wins against champs just like we do the rest of the regular season.
Okay, that's great. Wins versus district champs in other states, because we know, for example, a lot of teams down south, Las Cruces schools, etc., they play Texas schools and what have you.
Yeah, we do count those as well. That's something that came up years ago. Our schools asked us, and we hadn't at the time, but our schools felt, well, if they're a district champ in another state, that's a big deal, so we should count those. So we reevaluated that. That was probably 4 or 5 years ago, and since then we do count wins against a Texas school, an Arizona school, a Colorado school. If they're a district champ, we'll give them credit for that as well.
Awesome. And overall record, what does that mean? Define that.
Yeah, it's winning percentage, really.
Okay.
It's different across the state how many games schools play. You may have to have cancellations due to weather, what have you. So we do look at winning percentage. So if a team's 15-0 and the other one's 17-0, that's the same winning percentage.
Right.
They're both 1,000. If you have a team that's 7-3 in football and a team that's 6-4, obviously you can tell who the winner in the overall record is, but really we're using that percentage. You're using the 70% versus.
And a team that's 23-1 versus a team that's 24-1, it's going to go to the team that's 24-1, right?
Correct. Yeah. Again, back to the winning percentage. Yep.
Okay. Well, I'm not really good at math, but that one was easy.
I think you're right. Yeah. I think you got that one.
Okay. So then going into Max Prep rankings, what is it?
It's really a formula. It's similar to an RPI. It's not an RPI, but it's similar to that. It's just data-driven. Max Preps has a huge database of games, obviously not just in New Mexico, but across the country. Their formula uses every game that's played in high school basketball, for example, in boys basketball, not just in the state, but across the nation, to come up with a number or a rating for every single school. So it really looks at, your opponents, your opponent's opponents, your opponent's opponent's opponents, and so on and so forth, to come up with a number or a mathematical figure that rates each team.
Now, going into that, it's interesting because I feel like if you look at how the seeding process works and you go from district champions to you can't be seeded higher than somebody that finishes higher than you in district play, it's kind of like the thing that balances that out and gives the other games input that matter then.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great way to, look at who a team's played and look at their entire scope of work. We hear strength of schedule all the time. We need to use strength of schedule. Well, that's not an exact, part of the seeding and selection process. It's not a criteria point, but it kind of is added into that Max Preps rating. So if you're, if you have a 12-10 record, but a lot of those losses are to really strong teams, your Max Preps rating is going to be a little bit higher, and that's going to help you in the long run.
Talk about then the seeding process with district finish when you have teams that tie for second, maybe a three-way tie for second. Are they all equal? Can you take any one of those three teams that tie for second place regardless of how they seed it in the district tournament?
You can, yes. So yeah, if you have teams that tie for third place in a district, say, and then the tiebreaker puts one at 3 and one at 4. That's really just for the district tournament again. That's for the seeding in their district tournament. Our committee can look at head-to-head between those two teams outside of the district standings. So if they played each other in regular season tournaments, the district tournament even, if say based on a tiebreaker or a point differential, Team A gets the 3, Team B gets the 4, but Team B beat Team 3 out of 4 times.
And they might have a higher Max Prep ranking.
Exactly, yeah, but we're only going to look at head-to-head competition amongst those two schools. So if it
really so
correct,
if there's a three-way tie for say second, you'll just take head-to-head first, and not the entire 6 criteria for that.
Exactly, we're just looking at head-to-head. The way our bylaws read is if teams are tied in regular season district standings, the committee can look at other head-to-head competition, including the district tournament or regular season.
Including the district tournament?
Correct, yep.
Okay, and that is maybe a lot of people think the district tournament doesn't matter, but that actually could solve a couple of the tie-breaking scenarios then
right.
maybe.
It definitely does. I can tell you an example this fall in the sport of volleyball. We had 3 teams that tied for first, actually. So all of them we counted as district champions. The way it works, the tiebreakers put 2 teams together to play off for that automatic bid and that number 1 seed in the district tournament. Well, it just so happens the team that was left out, that didn't play in that playoff game,
right,
they actually beat up the other 2 schools in the regular season, and they earned a higher seed.
And the head-to-head, I get you. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people maybe understand that scenario.
Right.
That's good.
Right. When
2 teams are tied, it goes into a tiebreak, and what happens then? Say let's 3 criteria points to one team, 3 criteria points to another.
Yeah, so if we do have that situation, and it comes up quite a bit actually, where the criteria points are tied 3-3, 2-2, 1-1, then we're going to use head-to-head to break that tie. Obviously, folks always say, let them, hash it out on the court or on the field. Well, if it's tied 2-2 and Team A beat Team B, Team A earns that higher placement. But because of the geographical troubles we may have in our state, not every school plays each other. So I mean, that's tough. That head-to-head criteria point really doesn't come into play as much as you would think. And because of that, we have to have a second way to break the tie, which then we use that Max Preps ranking or rating, and whoever has that higher rating is going to earn the higher placement.
So you look at maybe potential 3-way tie scenario in 3 different districts. Let's just say you know, Team A and Team B and Team A beats Team B beats Team C, and Team C beats Team A in the criteria, what do you do then?
And that does happen quite often, to be honest with you. So it's a little bit more intricate. Instead of pairing up 2 teams together and looking at all 6, you have 3, and we're basically ranking each team with a 1, 2, or a 3 under each criteria point. So you look at overall record, say one team's 9-1, one team's 8-2, one team's 7-3. The team that's 9-1 is going to get a 1. So the lower the points, the better. Team that's 8-2 is going to get a 2. Team that's 7-3 is going to get a 3. And you just go forward with those 6 criteria points. And then from there, it's going to come up with some numbers, and whoever has the lowest number, we give that higher placement.
And then the other 2, do you then take them head to head, or do you just?
We look at them head to head at that point. Correct. Mm-hmm.
It is a very difficult job. I can tell you that. Sitting back and trying to get it right, you guys have to work hard. How does this process, you think, overall been accepted nicely by New Mexico?
I think so, yeah. And I think honestly, the folks that have a problem with it are probably the ones that don't understand it completely. I think, as you mentioned earlier, there's a lot of people out there that think the NMAA staff just gets together in a room and they're saying, well, I think this team's better than this team, so we're gonna, seed it this way, and that's not it at all. Once they call and we tell them, here's the 6 criteria point, and we can actually justify it and say, this is why Team A is ahead of you, because they have this criteria over you, and this one, and this one, and so on and so forth. It makes it a lot easier to explain, and I think, the phone calls and the questions that we receive after the seeding and selection meetings, they've dropped quite a bit, because it's a lot more easy to understand, because it's very objective and it's all data driven.
Appreciate your time.